What? Well, you're American, okay? Okay. What kind of American are you? You don't know?
Alright, so I just got out of the movie Civil War, an A24 film written and directed by Alex Garland and starring Spider-Man's girlfriend, Kristen Dunst. And this is A24's biggest budgeted movie they've ever produced. Its production budget's over $50 million. And I gotta say, after watching it, I came out of the movie a little lukewarm on it. It's got an 81% Rotten Tomatoes. It's got a 7.5 out of 10 on IMDb. I wasn't really feeling it coming out. And this is one of those movies I was really hyped for. You know, saw the trailers. The trailers were awesome. You know, Nick Offerman's the president of the United States. And you got the other faction, which is the Western Forces, which is California and Texas. And then you got the Florida Alliance, which is only mentioned like once in the movie. And they never really go back to that again. And I didn't really understand why we had three separate factions when we only saw like one. You know, we only saw the Western Forces and the United States. That's all we saw. You didn't really see the Florida Alliance, unless the guys in the Hawaiian shirts. Was that supposed to be the Florida Alliance? Like, I don't know exactly what that was. But, you know, this movie had some good stuff and some bad stuff. Definitely the good stuff in the movie is the world building. They really flesh out this, you know, new America where they're at a civil war. States have seceded from the Union. The economy is completely tanked. You know, the Canadian dollar's worth more than the American dollar. The interstate roadways are completely destroyed and stuff. And so it's like they do a lot of good world building. In fact, you know, it was so good. It kept me thinking about a video game called Homefront. During the movie, I was thinking to myself, they probably should have just made this a video game. This would be an awesome video game if you could just like go across America through these different factions and stuff like that. You know, big open world game. I think that would be pretty cool. And Alex Garland directed this movie, which, you know, he's a really acclaimed writer. He wrote 28 Days Later, Sunshine, and he even wrote a few video games, you know, Enslaved Odyssey to the West, which is a great written video game. And he wrote the Devil May Cry video game. So, you know, this guy has dabbled in both movies and video games, so that's why this movie was probably giving off a video game vibe, which is not the worst thing in the world to me. That's probably one of the parts I was liking about the movie. The acting was top-notch, you know. Nothing really brought me out of the movie as far as the acting goes. But something that was pulling me out of the movie, and I feel like it really hampered the experience, you know, dragged down the movie a little bit, was the needle drop moments with the music and the soundtrack. And I don't know why this movie needed needle drop soundtrack moments where they just start playing a song. They did it like 4 or 5 times in the movie, and I don't get that. You know, you probably could have did it once and got away with it, but when you do it like 5 times in the movie, and the songs really aren't that impactful, and they're not that memorable, it just feels like you're killing time or you're filling up the time length of the movie, and the song selections weren't that good to be in the movie in the first place. And it really goes to show, you know, how delicate those needle drop moments can be in a movie. You know, it'll work for a movie like Guardians of the Galaxy where, you know, somebody like James Gunn writes the songs into the script. You know, during the writing of the script, he already has an idea of what song's going to play at what moment. That's why his needle drop moments work. You know, if you remember the Suicide Squad movie, you know, when they start playing Hey by the Pixies, it works. In this Civil War movie, I would say almost none of the music choices worked. And it really brought me out of the movie as I was watching it. You know, something dramatic and fucked up would happen on screen, and then you get like a little song and a little montage sequence after it. And it just didn't feel right. It felt like the editing was off. And maybe that is a superficial complaint, you know, complaining about song choice, but when you have, you know, a moment where, you know, they kill somebody, you know, point blank range, and it's supposed to be this dramatic moment, and then you go right to like some rap song and them killing more people or something like that. It really has this whiplash effect as far as like what you're supposed to be feeling during the scene. And I wasn't a huge fan of it. It really did bring me out of the movie. Another thing I did like about the movie was the fact that we're following around press. You know, in every war, there's always these press people that follow around the troops and stuff like that, take pictures and stuff, and they're not supposed to be shot at or anything. And this movie takes that angle. We follow around a group of, you know, press people that are going to the front lines of the Civil War that's happening in Washington, D.C., because the United States is about to lose to the Western forces, and they're trying to get the last interview with the president before he essentially dies from the Western forces. They're about to take him and kill him, right? And they compare this Nick Offerman president to like people like Gaddafi and Saddam Hussein. Like that's who they're comparing him to in the movie. And I really wish we had more examples of that. You only see Nick Offerman as the president at the beginning of the movie as he's getting ready to give one of his speeches on the TV. And then you see him at the very end of the movie when they're about to kill him. And that's it. And I feel like maybe we could have had a little bit more with him. Maybe we could have saw him have more speeches on the TV as they're traveling to Washington, D.C. But, you know, he only pops up at the beginning and at the very end. And you don't really feel that much for him when he dies. You don't really care that much either. You care way more about the other character, one of the main characters that dies near the end. That's one of the more impactful deaths of the movie. Because you spent the whole movie with that character, learning about that character, and then they die. And that is how a death is supposed to be played in a movie, right? So that one worked. And the movie is essentially a road movie. It's a road trip movie across, the United States as we're trying to get to Washington, D.C. from New York City. And they pop up, 500 more miles to Washington, D.C. or something like that. That keeps coming up in the movie and stuff. So the movie's really played like, a post-apocalyptic, we're going across America type movie. And one of the main characters is Joel. A little on the nose that one of the main characters is Joel, and he looks almost like Pedro Pascal from The Last of Us. It's very, very on the nose. But, there's some great moments in this movie. The movie has a bunch of good moments. And one of the best moments you actually see in the trailer with, one of the soldier dudes played by Jesse Plemons, that awesome actor, that ginger actor that's in a bunch of great movies. He was in Hostels. He has them at gunpoint and he's like, which America are you from? That scene's in the trailer and it's even better in the movie. It's definitely one of the biggest highlights of the movie for me because he really comes off like a complete psycho in that scene, like a deranged soldier. And the movie gets really tense and really dark for that scene. And when the movie goes there and it gets to those moments where it's really intense and really dark, I feel like that's when the movie shines the most. And then you get that whiplash effect where we go to the next scene, there's some music playing, and it doesn't feel as heavy anymore because you have these like needle drop music moments playing, and they kind of lose the tension that they just had. If you had that tension going throughout the whole movie, I feel like the movie would be even better for that. And there probably is an alternate cut of this movie where they don't have these needle drop, moments with the music. And it is probably more tense, and maybe they were told to lighten it up a little bit. And even for all the good moments in the movie, I don't feel like the movie's going to have any staying power. It's not going to be a transcendent film. People are going to forget about this movie in a couple years, and it's going to be lost to time. I mean, no one's really going to care about this movie a couple years from now. And it really did have potential to be something huge. And maybe even have, sequels and a video game spinoff. It really is that type of film. For the amount of world building they do with this movie, it really feels like you could have did way more, and there could be more to this world that they created, and it just feels like a waste, really. And I feel like it definitely would have been better served as a video game, 100%. And by the end of the movie, I was already thinking of better ways they could have did the movie, so that right there is probably not a good sign. When at the end of a movie, if I'm thinking of a better movie they could have did with the same premise and even the same characters, they did something wrong. And, the third act of the movie is actually pretty good when we're at, going through Washington, D.C. They have their little, press vests on and they're following the troops and they're going through this battle to get to the White House. That stuff was pretty awesome. And I was thinking during that scene, like, why wasn't this the whole movie? Why weren't these press people just with a squad of soldiers going across America through these different battles to get to the White House? Why wasn't that the movie? That could have been very interesting and engaging because it's pulled off so well in the third act. This huge, bombastic action is happening, and then you get a silent snapshot where the camera takes a snapshot and you get like a still photo and silence for a second, and then it gets back to the action. Like, that was a good dramatic use of silence in the movie, and it was done very well in the third act. And they try to do that in the first act a bunch where they just go silent for like a few seconds and it doesn't work at all. But it works much better in the third act. And I'm thinking, damn, you could have did this the whole movie with this type of action sequences where we're hearing a bunch of gunshots and then, a snapshot of the camera and we go silent to see the still of the camera. And then we go back to the action. Like, that could have been way more of the movie. And the action is very good for what's in the movie. One last thing, though. I felt while watching the third act and we're storming the White House, it just felt weird. It felt off. It didn't feel good watching it. There's something a little disturbing about seeing Secret Service members getting shot up, and the White House getting shot up and the president getting shot in the head. It's something like kind of disturbing about that. Seeing the Speaker of the House, trying to surrender and people just shoot her up like crazy. Like, I didn't expect myself to be, turned off by that. I didn't expect myself to feel disturbed by that imagery. And then I was also thinking, why aren't they escaping through the tunnels underneath the White House? That's another thing I was thinking about it when watching the movie. Like, why isn't the president trying to escape through the tunnels underneath the White House? Like, why isn't he doing that? Like, why is he just like in the Oval Office? Like, it's just weird. But yeah, this movie has a ton of great moments. Some moments are very disturbing. Some things that might shock you, but then it'll have a whiplash effect where you get music that doesn't feel like it should be there. And you get moments where it goes completely silent, where it doesn't feel like it should be there. And there's something quite off with the editing. And in the end, the movie's not that memorable. It's not transcendent. You're not going to think about this movie after you watch it. You're not going to rewatch it probably. And most people will forget about it a year from now. And Alex Garland directed it, and he's a really great writer. He wrote some great stuff in the past, and I hope he gets another shot to do something else. Because I think this was like his first directorial debut, for a movie. And I just hope he gets another shot. I think the movie made enough money. He probably will get another shot. But maybe with a lesser budget. I don't see them doing a big budget movie like this for A24 again. It just wasn't really worth it. They didn't really get much of a return on the big budget that they put into the movie, right? But anyway, that's it for now. That's my thoughts on it. I was really looking forward to seeing this movie. And it was a little bit of a letdown, and I probably won't rewatch it. I might rewatch it once in the future, but it was an okay film. Wasn't a great film. Wasn't a horrible film. Had some great moments. Had some head-scratchy moments, like, why did they do that? Why are they doing this with the editing? Like, why are they doing this with the sound? Like, there's a lot of moments like that in the movie that really threw me off, really took me out of the film. And, yeah, that's my thoughts on it. Comment below, let me know what you thought of Civil War, and I'll see you guys in the next review. Bye-bye for now.